Welcome to the Home and Away podcast. This is episode 6, and I'm your host, Jacob Lawrence, joined as always by my brother and co-host, Caleb Lawrence. And today we have a very special guest. We have Trey Moses. Trey is the founder of 24 Reasons. He is a mental health advocate. He is a new podcast host of the 1 in 5 podcast, 2020 NCAA Inspiration Award winner, overseas hooper, and a good friend of mine. Trey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you guys?
Doing good.
We're good. We're just
It's quite the
hanging out, living
list
life.
there. It's quite the list there.
He's big time, man. He's a good guy, a good friend of mine. Like I said, we've had some battles this year over here in Portugal. Trey's team got the best of us both times. I'll give him that. But they were definitely some battles. I had a lot of problems trying to stop his right-handed hook and his quick spin, but it is what it is. It's a friendly rivalry, right?
Yeah, it was fun. It was good to battle with you, and hopefully we can battle again one day.
Yeah, I hope so. Somewhere, anywhere in the world, I guess. But yeah, that's one of the first things I wanted to ask you is just get into how's life been overseas? And I mean, you've had a couple years now. You started off in Bulgaria, right? And then you went to Australia for a little bit, but then COVID hit. Or did you ever even make it to Australia before COVID?
Yeah, I was in Australia for like 10 days, I think. But literally, like the second day I was there, our season got canceled. So from there, it was just trying to figure out kind of what was next, whether I would try to stay until there was a chance they could have a later season, or if I would just go home, and they felt it was best I'd just go home.
Yeah, I kind of went through the same thing last year in Spain where the season wasn't technically like officially canceled. It was postponed, and they gave us the option. Actually, they asked us like, would you rather just go home right now or stay and wait? And I was like, I'm not going to wait until the borders get closed or something. And everything was kind of moving so fast. So I just decided to go home, and obviously it was a good decision because I think a couple weeks later, the season officially got canceled. But now you're in Portugal and you're playing for Overints. And how has this year been? How has it been with you over here in Portugal? And I know it's been a little bit of a hectic season, but how's your stay been in Portugal so far?
I'd say I've been okay. I think it's been tough with having as much change as we've had. Our coach getting fired, and then 3 teammates getting sent home. So that was kind of tough to deal with. And early on when our new coach got there, it was like, okay, like, am I going to get sent home? Like, what's going to happen? And then one guy gets sent home and you're like, okay, like, am I next? What's going to happen? And then the other gets sent home and you're like, okay, like, what's going to happen now? Like, so it's kind of just like, it was kind of tough dealing with that. So I felt like, since he's gotten here, I've added a lot of added pressure onto myself, which hasn't been the best. And I've overthought a lot of things. So just trying to get over that little hump and try to finish the season strong. But I think from the basketball standpoint, he's been good for me. He's really helped me in the kind of the mental side and being a little more physical and aggressive in a sense. So from that standpoint, good. And the mental health wise, as good as you can be being overseas away from everyone in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of like something that a lot of people don't realize is like playing overseas is like romanticized a little bit. Like it looks really good from the outside looking in, and like I mean, I always wanted to play overseas my whole life, and I thought it would be a great life and it'd be awesome. And you'd just be able to go see sights every day and just like basically be on vacation, for 7, 8 months out of the year. But the fact of the matter is that it's not like a vacation, it's tough being away from family and friends. I think that's the hardest part. But other than that, like trying to adjust to a new culture, trying to, I mean, figure out how to communicate with people. I mean, is super challenging. So, what has been some of like the challenges you've went through as far as being overseas and trying to adjust to a completely new landscape?
I think last year I had a lot more challenges because the language barrier was a lot tougher. There was very few people that spoke English, and the ones, or anytime we would try to talk to people, it was kind of like you could tell they didn't want to talk to us. It felt like there was this kind of hate towards Americans, which was kind of tough, and I didn't really understand. But so that was a little tough. But it hasn't been too bad over here. The language barrier, like there's rarely anyone that doesn't speak English. And then I think being away from family, like my cousin got to visit last year, so that was awesome. But with borders being closed, like that wasn't going to happen this year, and so I'm hoping in the future, kind of this all settles down and family's able to visit. But I would say that made it a lot easier for me to be able to have him there for that week or so, and just kind of see a familiar face, obviously that I've known my entire life, and in the middle of the season, that's been tough. But I think from like, Brock is my teammate here. Like you got to play against him.
Yeah.
But become like best friends. And so I think that's been very beneficial for me. He's actually getting married this summer, so I'll be in his wedding. But that's been beneficial for both of us his first year. And then for me, like I haven't had a full year yet. Like I got sent home mid last year, and so this is the longest I've kind of been away. And so I would say like this is the toughest part of the season, is these last 2-3 months we have, and just really trying to grind it out. But yeah, so that's kind of how it's been for me. But
I think right now is like the time where everybody's just ready to go home. Kind of like it's that time of year. Like it's like everybody's getting a little homesick. Like no matter how well adjusted I think you are over here, you're always gonna miss that sense of home and that sense of like community you get whenever you're back in your hometown or just back living wherever you live in the States. It's just different, and a lot of people just don't understand it, I think, is the thing.
Yeah, and I think it makes it a lot tougher when your team's not winning.
Yeah.
Like both of ours
Oh
have
yeah.
been. But we got picked up a big win yesterday and have a good challenge on Monday. But this is the lowest I've been in terms, like I've never been on like a losing team.
Yep.
So to have this like happen, it's like, damn, like it's the first time I've ever felt like a loser in a sense. But
yeah, me and some of my teammates were talking about the same thing. We're just like we know we're not trash. Like we like we know like we're good players and we're not losers, but it's hard to feel like a winner whenever you're just losing game after game, and it's just like you feel helpless sometimes. But I mean, it is what it is. Like you said, it's basketball. There's a lot bigger things to worry about than just hooping. So yeah, I just got to power through it really. A couple more months and we're back to the crib, I guess.
Trust me, I can't wait.
With the separation that you kind of have and stuff, have you found yourself making more of a conscious effort to do the things to stay in contact with people back at home? Because I know for us, like we're both like he's significantly farther and you're significantly farther than I am, but I'm still like for the most part a flight away from family. Like it's not an easy drive to get home. And for us, like this was something we kind of saw that we weren't having like regular communication, and this is a way where we like wanted to consciously make sure we were having conversations weekly or whatever. Have you found yourself doing anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's it's been, you kind of realize the kind of true connections you have once you're over here, because you kind of are like, there's some people who you have talked to for so long or you see consistently for so long, and then you get over here and you're like, we really don't have nothing to talk about.
Yep.
And so like those people kind of fade away in a sense. But the people that you do have that connection with, you find yourself, FaceTiming them, Zoom, whatever it is. But I think the people that mean the most to you, you find ways to stay connected with. And I think going both ways, because, obviously like you, I know you have a job and you're busy, because he was telling me about it. And so for like you doing this, like, I feel like it means a lot to both of you guys, for both of you guys to have to take time out of your busy schedules for each other, to do this. And so for me, it's the same way. If I'm able to FaceTime a friend, I would hope that he or she sees that
Yeah.
I'm taking time out of my day and vice versa. And then video games is another big one for me, just being able to play with the boys back home and stay connected that way too.
That's probably the biggest thing for me. And for a while, that's the only like time me and Caleb really talked. It was on the weekends whenever he was off work and I was on video games. So gotta love it.
When I first got here, we only had one TV in our apartment. And so there was 3 of us living here. I was like, oh, this ain't about to happen. So I went to the store and immediately bought a TV. I was like, I'm not.
You gotta have one.
Had to. And so hopefully I'll be able to like sell it to one of the guys, but I had to have it.
Yeah, I still travel. I was gonna say, you still travel with the monitor?
Yeah, I copped a little, like, sitting right here, actually. I copped like a 19-inch like gaming monitor, and I can put it in my checked bag. And like I brought it back from Spain and then brought it here this year. It was a great investment. It was a great investment.
Just jumping into like what you started recently. I know you started a new podcast, the 1 in 5 podcast. I believe episode 1 came out on Monday. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How's that experience been? What's kind of the goal of that? And you have any exciting guests you have planned out that you would want to share, anything, or just kind of talk through how that came about and what your goal is with that a little bit?
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy because Amanda, she went to Ball State with me. She was 2 years older than me. But we've always followed each other, never really talked though. She does color coordination, I think it's called, or something like that, for Pac-12 women's basketball. So
color commentating.
I couldn't remember what that was called. But she does that for Pac-12 women's basketball. So she's always been in the sports world, and then she randomly messages me and was like, I've been thinking about starting a podcast about mental health. And I know you're big into this. What would it look like for us to work together? And deep down, I'd been wanting to start a podcast of my own. I just didn't know really the steps to take. But she knows, she's excellent with all of that. Got it on, Apple, Google, Spotify, all that good stuff. So from that standpoint, she's fantastic, but then she also has a story of her own. And so that's been kind of cool, just getting to know her, because I knew of her, but didn't really know her in a sense. But we really just want to end the stigma around mental health and allow people to come on to the show and just be vulnerable. And as vulnerable, the more vulnerable you are, kind of the more you help people. And we want to allow people to talk and to know that it's a safe space for them to talk and speak up about the things they care about, because we don't want to force that onto people, obviously. But I know some podcasts, some whatever, like you could get on there and feel, pressure to talk or feel like it's not a safe space. And we just want it to be as comfortable as possible for our guests. But guest wise, we don't really have anything set in stone. We have, a couple people that have said yes, like Emma Potter. She played at Stanford, maybe some Pac-12 school.
Yeah.
And then we have Asia Wilson, who's in the NBA or WNBA right now. So she said she'll come on. So we have like a couple verbal yeses, but nothing really set in stone. But we're not really gonna trip on guests right now. We're just trying to
get it off the ground first. I mean, we definitely know, as far as not knowing how to take the steps, what steps to take. This is going to be episode 6, and we're trying to figure out a lot of stuff still. And I know me and Kayla are both excited to listen along the 1 in 5 as it continues to have more and more episodes. And I just think it's awesome what you're doing because it really is hard, like to have athletes especially be vulnerable because I think as athletes, people look at us as like tough guys or like, you got to be tough or like, you know what I mean? Like this and that. And like people look at, being vulnerable as being soft or something at times, like it has like a negative view on it. So we appreciate what you're doing with that for sure. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always said is like as athletes, obviously stigma around mental health is around the world in general, but then you get into males, and that stigma grows, and then you get into male athletes, and that stigma grows even more, and then you get into like African American athletes, and that stigma grows even more.
Even higher, yeah.
So just like trying to end the stigma from the top and then slowly move our way down is kind of our goal in general, but my goal in general as well.
And like, so for you, why do you think that it is so hard for, like you said, athletes, males, like as you move up the scale to have hard discussions like with the people you care about? Because I know for me, when we moved out here, I kind of like I had struggled with some stuff before, and then once we moved out here, like it just got worse. Like I had to start seeing a counselor. Like would have breakdowns at work like once a week, and just like didn't really know what I was doing. And it took probably like 8 months for me to reach out to anyone besides like my parents, Cobb, and my wife. Like my friends didn't know because if I made a trip back home, like I acted like everything was cool all the time. And like, why do you think there is that stigma about like you have to act a certain way? Like if it's the people that are really actually close to you and actually care about you, like you would think those would be the ones you would want to have those conversations with. But as males, a lot of the times, like you kind of push it to the side and don't ever want to have those conversations.
I think it starts from a young age. I was listening to Ocho Cinco, Brandon Marshall, and I can't remember who the other person was, but the analogy he used was fantastic. He was like, you have two twins, one boy, one girl. They both fall down. You're gonna go up to the little girl and you're gonna say, "Oh, are you okay? Like, you're okay. Like, just give her love."
Yeah.
The little boy's gonna be crying. And you're gonna say, "Come on, get up. We don't cry. That's
Right.
not what we do." So I think being taught that from a young age, like it sticks with you. And so as males, we tend to not want to see people in a vulnerable way. We don't want to be vulnerable towards other people, especially other males. Um, but it's tough. But for me, that's what I've been trying to do is kind of be more openly vulnerable on social media and the different things I've written about or the different podcasts I'm on, just kind of talk about the things I've been through in hopes that one male sees it and becomes more vulnerable with his friends, and then those friends become more vulnerable with their friends, and it just keeps growing and growing until um, you know the stigma is not as prevalent.
Yeah.
Right.
And how did you first like know that you wanted to become kind of like an advocate for mental health? Like how did you know like this is what you want to do? And like, because I mean everybody struggles with it, but it's hard. Like most people don't want to speak out like how you have and how you've used like your platform um as kind of a way to help others. And what made you decide you wanted to do that?
For me, so my story began in like seventh grade. It was like the first time I, remember wanting to just not be alive. And then we moved through high school and I started self-harming. And then my senior year, I asked a girl with Down syndrome to prom, and the tweet like went viral. Like CNN, they were calling, we were on the front page of Yahoo, the Ellen Show called, local paper, like all of it. Like, so I
Wow.
gained like a large number of followers. And so I was like, with this following, like I can either be, more outspoken on the things I care about and try to help people, be more outspoken about the things that don't really matter and be selfish
Yeah.
with this platform, or just be quiet, which isn't selfish by any means, but just being quiet. And so for me, I just wanted to be more open. And so between tweets and between Instagram and sharing stuff, retweeting stuff, I was just trying to show my openness. And so I wouldn't have even said like I was an advocate then. I was just kind of, because it wasn't until my freshman year of college where I knew, because I was diagnosed as having severe depression. But it wasn't until then where I even knew what depression was. So I knew like I was sad. I knew I was down. I knew I had all these different feelings, nervousness at weird times. And so like I would talk about that on social media, but it wasn't until after that where I was like, wow, like, so this is what I'm going through. Like, okay, then I know there's other people going through this as well. So then that's kind of when I took an even bigger step and started telling a little bit about my story. And then obviously everything with Zach happened, and that's where I took even a bigger step in trying to be more vocal.
Yeah, and then also along with your work, as far as trying to spread awareness about mental health and stuff like that, you mentioned that your tweet went viral when you asked a girl with Down syndrome out to prom, right? And you've also done a lot of work with like disabled people, right? And like kids with Down syndrome, as far as like basketball camps and stuff, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah.
And how did you get into that? Like what made you want to do that and kind of help those people and show them, that they're loved as well, and that you care about them?
It's kind of funny because there was a kid named Corey Pitzenberger, who is like the biggest basketball fan, and like I didn't know who he was, but like he knew all about me, so he'd be talking to me in the hallways, and like it's funny, but the kid's like 6'4", like he's tall,
Really?
like he's a big kid, so it's like he loves basketball, knows all about it, and so he kind of just started talking to me, and that's kind of when my first contact with someone with a disability came. And then through that, I met Blake Cummins, who has Down syndrome. And then through both of them, I started, I can't even remember what it's called now, but there was like a basketball program where they would play other schools who had a team with those with disabilities.
Okay.
And so I was on that team. And so they could pass to me. I couldn't shoot, and I could pass to them. I couldn't block. I couldn't rebound. Couldn't do any of that. But when I tell you like Corey dominated that, like I'm telling you, like Corey's like one of the biggest kids out there. He's shooting threes, like he's doing all of it. But then he actually ended up going to be a manager at a prep school in Louisville, and he like loves it. So that was cool. But and so then between them, that's when I joined peer tutoring my senior year, which puts me in the classroom with them. But for me, I was in PE. And so then I met Ellie, and that's who I asked to prom. And so between the three of them, I would say that because of them, they caused me to want to make a better world for them. Like there's also a stigma around people with disabilities, and they're still as smart as anyone. You see some like Olympic style lifters who have Down syndrome, and like they're just strong as shit. And so it's crazy that we count all these people out, but at the end of the day, they're just people too. They're some of the best people you could ever be around, non-judgmental, just funny.
100%.
Between them and then those that deal with mental health issues, like those are my two biggest passions.
And we got put into like that environment to like really young. So our dad worked for Special Olympics when we were younger, probably like I don't even know, probably around like 6 years old. Because he was working for Special Olympics, and he oversaw like an entire area of Special Olympics. So we would go every year to the Illinois State games and like volunteer with him. Basically, we're just like the annoying kids running around. And first of all, like the level of athletics that's there is extremely impressive. And then the other part of that is the level of person there is unbelievable. And it's kind of like you talked about, is like one thing that you'll see at a Special Olympics event that you'll never see at any sporting event ever is if you're in a race and another Special Olympian falls, like the leading person in that race will stop running, turn around, go help that person up, and they'll all run together. Like at the end of the day, for them, it's really about competing. Like they want to win, but it's about like caring about each other and loving each other. And obviously, in a lot of competition, it can't be that way. Like there's a winner and a loser in competition, but to see like in its purest form, people connecting with each other is amazing. And everybody just wants to come up and give you hugs and like love each other. And it's an extremely eye-opening experience. I would say anyone who's never volunteered with those with disabilities, take the first chance you could get and like really be as open as possible to it, because it'll change your life, honestly, just to see like how pure of human beings they are.
It really will. And that's and because of them, like I wanted to start the basketball camps I was doing, and then we're getting anywhere between 20 and 50 kids, and it's like just to see them, it was roughly about 2-ish hours, but just to see how much fun they genuinely had,
Yep.
doing just the smallest drills, having a little competition within each other, but just to see how much fun they genuinely had, being around us, as me hosting and then having some camp counselors as well. But it was just awesome to see, and I love doing it. Actually, I mean, a couple days ago, just randomly. Oh, you said I'm frozen. Am I good now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're good now. You're good now.
You're good now.
But Blake just like randomly FaceTimed me like a couple of days ago, and just was talking a little bit about life, and those are like the moments that kind of mean the most.
No doubt. What you got, Caleb? You got
then
something?
We moved. Sorry, like
You're
a
good.
year or so ago, moved into the NCAA Inspiration Award. Received that in 2020, correct? And just kind of talk us through what that process was like. How you got nominated for it, how it might have come about, and like what that whole experience was like for you.
My senior year, I remember our one of our guys just talking to me about, I'm going to nominate you. I think it's an award that you're very deserving of. And then kind of didn't hear much about it the rest of my senior year, and then like while I was in Bulgaria, I think I learned that I'd won it. And so originally my dad was gonna, because the award show was in LA, my dad was gonna accept it for me. And because I was obviously in Bulgaria, I wasn't gonna be able to, catch flights with games and stuff. But he was gonna accept it for me. But I ended up leaving and being able to accept it. But I think the coolest thing was like the NCAA had like a Turkish film crew, because we were like an hour-ish from Turkey, hour and a half maybe. So they came, like they drove, and did like an interview at my place.
Wow.
And that's like the video that's from the NCAA on YouTube, like that was them doing that. And so I thought that was pretty cool. But then I get sent home, kind of a blessing in disguise, because I get to go accept the award, met some awesome people there. And so for me, like, it's a cool award, whatever. But I think the most important thing for me is just understanding that my goal since the beginning of this is just to help inspire one person. If I do that, my job's done. And so even getting nominated, let alone winning, just kind of shows that I am inspiring people. And I'm hoping that the people I'm inspiring are inspiring others. And I just want to keep going and going and going. But from that award show, like I got the chance to then go speak to the community of Chicago at the All-Star game, literally like that couple weeks later. And so that was awesome too, to see kids in the crowd like me. And it was like the first time, because I thought originally I was going to be on a panel with Shamiko Holslaw, Kevin Blackstone, Meta World Peace. And so then we're all like there like roughly an hour before, and they're like, okay, Trey, so you're gonna go out first. I'm like, whoa, what? She's
You
like,
said, hold up.
yeah, like you're just gonna be like a TED talk. I was like, are you serious? Like I had no idea. Like you guys are gonna tell me this now? I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, like I at least need to be sitting down. Um, so they got me a chair, whatever. So, but just to be able to look into the crowd and kind of see, people like me, like young African American males who, um, in a sense, are going through something, have gone through
Yeah.
something, or will go through something, and just try to inspire those. Um, it was awesome.
And you're actually doing a little bit more of the public speaking stuff now, correct? I know you had a series or going through a series, Broken Basketball and Breaking It. You want to talk to us a little bit about that and how that's going, who you've had the opportunity to speak to with that to this point?
Yeah, it's been a little tougher with COVID, so it's been a couple months since I've gotten the chance, but I got to talk to Liberty, East Carolina, and there was someone else. But it was awesome being able to talk to guys. I think the most impactful for me was Liberty, because I remember talking to them, and then a couple of days later, their Dobo texted me and was like, "Hey, like I just want you to know one of our freshman guys came to me about going to counseling. And I don't think that he would have came to us about it if it weren't for you talking about what you did." And so like those are the moments that mean a lot to me because one, not a lot of people even know what counseling really is. Two, not a lot of people have the courage to want to even go to counseling, because I feel like a lot of people, if you know about counseling, a lot of people know it can help, but a lot of people still aren't ready to take that next step to go.
Yeah.
Um, and so then three, to finally hear that he was ready and willing to go, like, it was awesome. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to being able to continue to do that. I think attacking it at the college level because I went through college basketball. I went through tragedy. I went through all this stuff to be able to build connections with you guys because a lot of guys will follow me on Instagram after, message me, tell me things they've been through. And so to be able to then talk to them after and build connections, I think one, it's important because I think connections with people are the most important thing. And then two, it's needed for a lot of these guys because, like
Yeah.
I said, not a lot of guys have or have that experience with counseling. So first, just talking to someone about what you're going through, even if it's not a counselor, I think it's important and it's starting to build that vulnerability.
Yeah. And I think it's starting to become more of a thing in college athletics. Like people coming in and just at least telling them, like, hey, if you're having any, problems with your mental health, you can go talk to this person and they'll get you with this counselor. But I think having someone like you who is more of like someone who they can look at and say, okay, like this guy's, been where I am before. And now he's, playing professional basketball and like he's still open about it. And he's still been to counseling and like he's still gotten help whenever he needed it. Like I feel like that would make an athlete more like comforted and like more willing to actually go ask for help. So I think it's really dope that you're doing that. And I think it'll help a lot of those kids just hearing it from somebody like you.
Yeah. What's crazy is like when I first got on campus, obviously like, we athletes, we got to be on campus during the summer. So we get there as freshmen and this lady came and gave all the freshmen this little questionnaire and it was about
Yeah.
mental health. Like, have you had thoughts about, suicide ever, like all these different things. And so I answered truthfully, was just like, okay, whatever. Like, the last time I kind of went to someone about it, just kind of got brushed away, but I'll just answer honestly, not expecting much. She comes back to me the next week. And from there, I start meeting with her once a week. And that was my first time ever um, seeing counseling. But I'm hoping and I'm thinking that it's starting to start earlier. So I don't know, obviously, because I'm not in high school anymore, but I'm thinking and hoping that the mental health conversations will start, middle school, high school, start getting um, those conversations because, there's so many different types of mental health. And so many of these kids, so many of these people, like there was a cheerleader at one of the high schools in Louisville who just lost her life. And to think that, what resources do you have for her teammates?
Yeah.
What resources do you have for her classmates? What are you guys going to do for those students? And so it just gets me thinking, like, something has to be done. Because
Yeah.
if like I had never experienced death before Zach, like I had lost my great grandmother, but in a sense, like I wasn't super close with her. So for me, like Zach was my first taste of real death that came from someone close to me. And luckily, I had a great circle at Ball State. I had, obviously, coaches, teammates, all of that got me into the right places. But it's like at 16, 15, 16, 17, what do I do? Well,
How do you cope with that? Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to handle that. And she lost her life in such a tragic way. And it's like,
Yeah.
how are you going to help them? And so I'm hoping and praying that the conversations start earlier on. I don't think it needs to start in elementary school, but I do think middle school is probably where it needs to start.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you on that. I think you see that a lot too with high school kids, like something happens, an accident or the other. And I mean, there's a lot of community outreach and like, trying to like give support to the families and the people like that are directly involved with it, but like a lot of it kind of doesn't get pushed onto like not push, but a lot of like help and support and stuff doesn't always go to, their friends, like in high school, I mean, your friends mean everything to you. I mean, even now, my friends are basically family, so I definitely agree that they need to start having those tough conversations at a younger and younger age and just helping those kids out whenever they need it the most, whenever they're the most vulnerable, probably.
No, I agree with you because if you look at it in more the mental health way, if someone, so for me, when Zach took his life, they say like not the next, but the next best chance of someone to take their life is like the closest ones to him. For me, like I found him in that way. So like they were so worried about me, now gonna do it. And so it's like survivor's guilt. You have all these other aspects of everything. And so just trying to make sure these kids are good.
I think we're going to switch gears a little bit now, get into something else, some rapid fire questions where, you don't have to tell a story the whole time, something a little lighter, and just kind of wrap it up with something kind of fun and talk about some things that I know that you're into, other than mental health and things like that. So, Caleb, do you want to start or do you want me to get them going on the rapid fire?
I'll go ahead. First one I had was the biggest difference between college basketball and overseas basketball.
I think work ethic. Not that I didn't work hard, but you're all about basketball being overseas.
Let's see. What's my first one? Oh, what's your favorite card in your collection? Because I know you like to collect cards and stuff. So either that or give me your favorite card and then also your favorite piece of just sports memorabilia, because I know you're into that.
My favorite card would be LeBron rookie comic I have. I got it for $500 in December, and then the last sold was like $2,300. So seeing that growth in that was awesome. And then favorite piece of memorabilia, I have John Jones signed glove and then signed trunks as well. So I'm a big John Jones guy.
That's awesome.
What's your favorite memory of your time playing at Ball State?
Probably when we beat Notre Dame. We beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame when they were number 9. My teammate Taylor Persons hit a game-winning 3. And so it was like one of those moments where like we had this long-ass road trip. And then Notre Dame was like 4th out of like we traveled like 9,000 miles in like 2 weeks, so it was like crazy.
All on the bus.
We flew from Muncie to Oklahoma because we played at Oklahoma back, Muncie to Oregon to Pennsylvania to Indy. We spent Thanksgiving at Indy, or we Pennsylvania, then played Notre Dame, drove from Notre Dame, then played Indiana State, and then Indiana State was our last stop.
Wow.
That was probably the best experience.
That's a dope win though to have.
No
Top 10
doubt.
team.
No doubt.
Let's go back to what you said. You're a big John Jones fan, so I'm guessing you're a UFC fan, right?
Yeah.
And there's some big fights on tonight. We're recording this on Saturday. It's going to come out on Tuesday. What do you think? Adesanya can move up to the light heavyweight and get the belt? What do you think? I don't know. He looks kind of small.
I think Jan's going to get it, man. I really do. I think that Izzy's fast, and that can overwhelm some fighters. But I think Izzy's fighting style with the leg kicks won't bother Jan as much as it does the middleweight guys. But I think Jan wins in KO.
And hypothetically, building off that, Bones Jones versus Izzy. I'm guessing you got Bones Jones, but
I got John.
5 rounds. How many rounds do you think it goes?
I think it'll be John Jones in 4, because I think
so?
I think that John Jones would want to knock him out. And we haven't seen like a dominant performance from John Jones in a while. There's been a lot of like, did he really win that fight? And so for me, I think John Jones would really want to come out on top.
Okay. If you could trade places with anyone in the world for a day, who would it be and why?
Man, that's crazy. I'd say, I don't know. I'd like to be LeBron, maybe. I think it'd be cool to be the best basketball player in the world.
Right.
Kind of be most recognized for what he's done off the court as well.
Right.
Yeah, I always tell people like people always ask like, would you take LeBron's what would you do with LeBron's athleticism for one day or something? I just like, I can't even imagine just being able to just dunk on people like that and just get up and down the court like that. So I'd probably have the same exact answer as you. I know you are a supporter of like the WNBA and women's hoops. So who do you think is the best female hooper of all time?
Wow, all time? That's crazy.
That's a tough one.
Man, that is a tough one.
I think it's honestly tougher in the women's game too, because the WNBA is still such a new league that like some of those like the Cheryl Millers of the world didn't really get to play like in a top league like that. You know what I mean? So it's hard to judge, kind of hard to gauge.
Man, that's crazy. I can't. Yeah, I don't really have an answer for you. I wouldn't know how to answer that one, because I think.
Who do you think the best is right now? How about that?
To me, I love Elena Delle Donne. I think her size, skill, and athleticism, and like she's so good. And being able to watch her in person, like for me, like it was like Kobe-esque. Like her footwork, her ability to get her shots off, like it was crazy. But yeah, it's been awesome to. I think I've seen like 3 or 4 games of her in person, and so she's awesome.
She's a bucket.
A bucket. It's crazy.
Wow. What's life look like after basketball for Trey Moses?
Man, that's tough. I think long term I'd like to open up my own preschool for kids under the poverty line. Public speaking, like I would say those 2 are like the 2 probably biggest that I'd pursue.
That sounds like a big plan, and you're the guy that I know could get it done. So, I mean, we wish you nothing but the best, and I hope everything finishes out this year well for you over there in over Ince. You're only half an hour away from me right now.
Yeah.
So I hope you all have a good end of your season. 6 more games left. Who you guys got on Monday?
We got Benfica.
Okay, that's a winnable game, though. That's a winnable game. Man. They're good, but it's winnable. Go ahead and go get that win, man, and stay safe out there. And we appreciate what you're doing, as I'm sure a lot of people do. And thanks for coming on. Thanks for spending some time with us today. You could have been doing anything else, but it means a lot to us that you came on with us.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. was thinking about me
Appreciate
and
it,
having
man.
me on.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank both of you guys.
For
Yes,
sure.
sir. Have a good one.
We want to thank Trey again for coming on, sharing a little bit of his story with us. It's one that if you aren't aware of, definitely worth going to read and check out a little bit about his background and his story. An absolutely great dude, and I appreciate him taking the time. That was the first time I've ever talked with him. I know you know him a little more, but couldn't appreciate him more for coming on and sharing a little bit with us.
Yeah, me and Trey, I got introduced to him because we're signed with the same agency, One Motive Sports, and he's just been like a really dope guy to just like have as a friend, you know. And whenever we played each other these 2 times this year in Portugal, like it was really fun just catching up with him after the game. I think after the last game, we talked in the parking lot for like 30, 40 minutes or something like that while we were waiting on the rest of my team to get ready to leave. So he's just a good guy and a great friend and just somebody that I'm very thankful to have in my corner and having my circle, you know.
No doubt. And I think he brought up a really good point, and it's about the openness of having mental health conversations with kids in like the middle school age. Obviously,
Yeah.
like you never want to force anything on anyone, but having a better understanding of it could honestly help a lot of people. I know for myself, middle school age, like is probably the time where I like vividly can remember more like struggling with anxiety type stuff. Like I
Yeah.
didn't even
You had
know.
like before I knew what it was, you definitely had like a lot of anxiety as far as like before games and like trying to play games. And I remember like you wouldn't really eat food and stuff because you were like so
Right.
nervous and stuff.
And
You had to eat
that
like
was
5 hours before the game.
right. And that was like, shoot, that was going back to like elementary school. But like
Yeah.
when it got older, it got to the point where like in eighth grade, there might be like 6 people that know this. Like part of the reason I stopped playing basketball after eighth grade was um, I would, our mom teaches at the middle school. So we got the perk of, or I did, she had moved to a different class by then, by the time you were there, but I got the perk of being her like PM advisory helper. So during our advisory time in the afternoon, we kind of just go hang out in our classroom. Um, but like before basketball practice, like it got to the point where it was sometimes 5 days a week that like I would cry in her classroom before basketball practice because I was so scared to go, not for any
Yeah.
specific reason or anything. Like, but then like once I learned more as I got older, like about mental health stuff and like what about anxiety really is, I was like, oh, like it makes a lot of sense. Like that was the feelings that they talk about is what I had like starting at a young age, and I've gotten a lot better at handling it. But like that was probably the peaking point, and then from there I made up a lot of excuses as to why I didn't want to play basketball anymore. So, but that was like probably the biggest deciding
It's
factor of
not
it was
funny,
like,
but
no, I mean it is though, like because
I just
like
know you did make a lot of excuses. Like
right.
I
I
was
made a
always like,
lot of excuses,
why don't you want to play? You know?
right, and
I mean,
I've come up with any other reason besides like essentially it was like mentally like I couldn't
mm,
handle it. Like I was broken down before everything. Like I went to the doctor, they thought I had an ulcer, and like I just wasn't mentally prepared to play anymore. And so to have someone who like has gone through, I want to make it clear, like has gone through significantly worse than I has, like have he lost like one of his best friends to suicide. He's to for have someone like him who's really made it a point to be an advocate for athletes. Like I know athletes who have like reached out to me because as I started coaching and stuff, I got a lot more open about it and about struggling and like making sure the
yeah,
athletes knew that I was someone that they could come to, regardless of other coaches, like whether it was our men's or women's teams at UCM. Like there's a couple volleyball girls I've talked to here that like have struggled with some stuff, like not super serious stuff, but like they've even texted me like when they've had issues because they knew that from Melissa telling them that like I've struggled with similar stuff. So I think that it's really cool to like to understand that you're not alone and there's other people going through things or struggling with things. And like the people who care about you really care about you, and they're not going to think less of you if you have anxiety or if you're depressed about something. Like the ones that love you and care about you are going to be there for you regardless. And to have someone like Trey really spreading that message, who's gotten to, for most people, like the highest point you can possibly be. Like, dude was a Division I college athlete, plays professional basketball.
Yeah.
Like, to see someone who's like that and still be like, oh, he can struggle too. It's okay to struggle. I just need to go about it the right way. And I think it all started honestly with like a big one was DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love. Like when they started opening up about it, I think it kind of broke the floodgates to where it became a thing that, okay, it's okay not to be okay. As like something
Yeah.
I read from Trey and from like a lot of people is they opened it up to that point to where like, okay, I'm a professional athlete. Like people would think I'm on top of the world, but I still have days where I'm not all right too. And I think that's huge.
Yeah. Having millions of dollars and being like at such a high level of professional basketball and competition, and being this public figure that a lot of kids look up to, a lot of people love, and then a lot of people like hate. All that doesn't shield you from still having your own personal struggles within yourself, and having your own mental health struggles. So, yeah, it's something that I never dealt with much, honestly, until like I know in college I had some problems with it, just with like relationships and stuff. But basketball was always my like coping mechanism, where like when I remember when I was going through that, like I was just in the gym like 25/8 and like just wanted to shoot, just because like it's like therapy. It's like forgetting about everything. You just get on the gun and go, and you might be like 600, 700, 800,000 shots deep. And that's just like, you're just doing it. And like if I do this and all my shots right, like if the ball's going in, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just kind of, it's like a way to just like release, and just like something about and something you're certain about. And that's always been my thing. And then this summer I couldn't find, like, I mean, I didn't have a job overseas, and I was like, I was struggling with not knowing if I'd play professional basketball, if I'd ever play basketball again, for a little bit there. Like I had real questions about that. And it was days where I knew like I needed to go to the gym and work out and try and get better. And I didn't have a job. So, I mean, there's nothing else keeping me back besides just my own mental. And it was hard to get out of bed sometimes. And I shared it with Riley, and, she kind of just snapped me out of it and helped me get through it. But there was times where I would just wake up like at 9 a.m. and just lay in bed till like 2, because I just like didn't want to do anything. I just felt defeated. So, it's definitely something that happens to athletes in at any level, and also something that takes place within, like Trey said, even just being a male, like automatically puts you at a different standard than a female, as far as you got to be perceived as tougher, and like shaking it off, and rub some dirt on it, like little sayings like that. I think
Right.
like they like give you this, what's it, like, not toxic masculinity, but kind of, where
Basically,
the
yeah.
man's always supposed to be like the tough guy, and like never supposed to have any struggles, whenever there is times whenever you struggle mentally and physically with a lot of things. So I appreciate Trey, and I mean, he's definitely inspired me to look more into myself and be more honest with myself and other people as far as my own struggles. So um I appreciate him for what he's done, and kind of just opening my eyes to see more stuff, because I remember when I saw him sign with like OMS, and I started looking him up and looking through all his stuff, like reading what he had been through, and kind of his goals, and just the things that he had said, and some of his speeches and things like that. I was like, wow, like that helped me a lot, just to realize that it's okay to not be okay. Like that's what he always is saying. So it was dope to have him on, and I don't know, just blessed to be a friend of this.
Right. Right. Definitely really cool to just have the opportunity to hear his story and to talk with him. And I hope I get the opportunity to talk with him some more. I just kind of would love to hear more about his story and kind of where he's at and where he's headed to the future, and kind of get on board and get involved in any way that I'm really able to. So again, appreciate him for coming on. If you made it this far, we really appreciate it. I know it's a little bit of a deeper talk than what we've done in a lot of stuff. We want to have a lot of fun with this podcast, but I think it's important at times to also use the little bit of a platform that we have to share real life stuff as well. So if you made it this far, we really appreciate it. Make sure you go subscribe to the pod, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube, subscribe as well. 5 stars, rate and review on Apple, and follow us along on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Home and Away Podcast. And we'll talk to you next week.
We're out. Peace. See you.